Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, where we take up important articles of the day from the newspaper and discuss them in detail as per the demands of Civil Services exam. Articles covered today are displayed on your screen and their notes in PDF and Word format are provided in the description box down below. Without further ado, let us begin.
Now, starting off with the first article of the day, which appeared on page 14 of today's Hindu newspaper. This article reports that from August 15th this year, all payments in panchayats will be made via digital medium only. Now, payments on such a large scale through digital medium is only possible because of the development of digital payment ecosystem in our country. This topic is also important from UPSC perspective, as in GS paper 2 a question appeared on use of e-governance, and in GS paper 3 a question appeared on inclusive growth and issues arising out of it. And use of digital payments is intended to promote both e-governance and inclusive growth in our country. Further, previous year question of the mains in the year 2020 asked a question about importance of digital revolution in e-governance in our country. Further, in prelims of the year 2018, a question directly appeared on digital payments via Bhim app and two-factor authentication. Hence, in the scope of today's discussion, we will first take a look at advantages that these digital payments offer. Further, we will also discuss the challenges that are associated with digital payment ecosystem. Also, we will discuss the government initiatives in order to promote digital payments. After which, we will take a look at the need of the hour in order to improve digital payments coupled with further steps that may be required. Now, the Payments and Settlements Act of the year 2007, it defines digital payments as any transfer of funds that a bank does to debit or credit an amount from our bank account, and this is done through electronic means. The digital payment includes point of sale transfers, ATM transactions, direct deposit or withdrawal of funds, transfers which are initiated over telephone, internet, or payments made by cards. Digital payments can be done by different modes such as NEFT, RTGS, IMPS, payments via debit or credit cards, as well as UPI. Now in India, volume segment of digital payments are dominated by debit cards and UPI, and it constitutes about 50% of the total volume. Whereas in terms of value, RTGS and NEFT dominates, and it constitutes about 53% of total value of payments. Further, digital transactions per capita has increased in our country. From 2.38 transactions per capita in 2014, it has increased to 22.42 transactions in a financial year in the year of 2019. Hence, we can see that the number of per capita transactions has increased almost tenfold. Now, there are many advantages of making digital payments. The first advantage is that it helps in financial inclusion. As people who were previously excluded from the formal banking system in our country, after arrival of digital payments, they have started using their bank accounts more frequently, and hence it has promoted financial inclusion. Further, digital payments are convenient to use and are hassle-free in nature. We can make payments via few simple clicks on an app through our mobile phones. Also, digital payments offer security in the transactions, as the money cannot be destroyed or can be stolen usually. Further, digital payments offer incentives which can be obtained via cashback offers provided by private payment systems. Also, use of digital payments eliminates the use of counterfeit currencies, and it is further important from the macroeconomic health of our country. In addition, use of digital payments can help make our economy less cash intensive, which means cash in circulation would reduce drastically. However, there are many challenges that are associated with the digital payment ecosystem in our country. What are these challenges? Let us take a look in the next slide. The first challenge that the digital payment ecosystem faces is related to the technology. As there is lack of integration of online payment systems which run across different platforms, and this results into processing and payment delays. Further, the second challenge includes the security of these online payments. Now, digital transactions, as we know, are vulnerable to cyber crimes, and it poses the risk of data theft. Also, payments have been affected by hacking and security breaches, and it can result into financial loss of consumers and reputational loss for payment systems company. Also, the third challenge pertains to the lack of digital infrastructure. Now, small service providers, they do not have enough resources to invest in electronic payments infrastructure such as point of sale machines. Also, there is a problem related to lack of digital literacy in our country. According to NSSO data, only 4.4% of rural households and 23.4% of urban households have possession of computers, and out of which only 42% of urban consumers have internet connection in these computers. Hence, this leads to lack of avenues for digital payments. Also, the majority of rural population do not know how to use online payment systems, and hence it contributes to lack of digital literacy. Further, the digital payments are subjected to transaction charges, which is taken by companies in a form of merchant discount rates, also known as MDR. And these charges are seen as a way to put additional tax. Hence, businesses, they hesitate to prefer digital mode of transactions. Now, Government of India has taken many initiatives in order to promote digital payments. What are these initiatives? Let us take a look one by one. The first initiative was that of passage of Payment and Settlements Act of the year 2007. This act provides for the regulation and supervision of payment systems in India, and it designates the Reserve Bank of India as the authority for regulation of digital payments in our country. Also, there has been efforts to rationalize the MDR charges. Payment systems such as RuPay, they offered almost 0% of MDR during the demonetization exercise, and further they have only increased the amount of MDR marginally. Also, the Reserve Bank of India has established the Payments Infrastructure Development Fund, which is there to encourage the businesses to deploy point of sale machines and their related infrastructure in a country. Also, the government has initiated the Digishala program, in which free Doordarshan DTH channels, which are there for educational purposes, are broadcasted to create awareness regarding various forms of electronic payments. Further, the Government of India initiated the Vittiya Saksharta Abhiyan, and this Abhiyan aims to actively engage the youth and students of higher education institutions and encourages and motivates them so that all payers and payees use digitally enabled cashless economic systems for the transfer payments. Hence, there is a need of the hour to promote digital payments in our country. What are the steps then we can take? Let us discuss in the next slide. The first step that needs to be taken is related to tackling the burgeoning instances of outages, cyber frauds and breaches in digital payment ecosystem. Further, there is a need to improve security, control and compliance among the payment institutions such as banks, payment gateways, prepaid payment instruments and other banking entities. Also, there is a need to protect the confidentiality of consumer data and integrity of data and processes associated with digital products and services that are offered in the economy. Further, there is a need to establish an effective dispute redressal mechanism. which will handle the consumer grievances respectively. Also, promoting digital payments will help our economy move towards less cash economy. Hence, we will be able to reduce the amount of cash in circulation. There are further initiatives as well. These include there's a need to standardize the devices and browsers that are used for digital payments, as it is needed to make payments uniform across all kinds of devices, and this will improve the confidence of users in the digital payment systems. Also, there's a need for awareness and education initiatives, as many consumers, especially the senior citizens, are still wary about using the digital payments and technologies. Hence, both the governments and private sector companies, they need to educate their consumers about security advantages of digital payments in a more traditional manner. Further, there is a need to improve internet penetration and its accessibility, as currently internet access in rural areas is not as good as urban areas. Hence, government and other stakeholders needs to be involved so in order to improve internet penetration in our country. Also, there is a need to provide incentives as well as rewards, as more consumers will then be willing to switch to digital payments if they receive higher rewards and redeeming rewards with simplicity and faster payments. Hence, by standardization across all devices, improving awareness and education, as well as improving internet penetration and rewarding digital payments will help improve digital payments ecosystem in our country. This is all for today's discussion on digital payment ecosystem. Now moving on to the second article of the day, which appeared on page 13 of today's Hindu newspaper. This article reports that due to Manipur conflicts, it has resulted into issue between two Naga groups, that is, Naga National Political Groups or NNPG and National Socialist Council of Nagaland or NSCN. Now these two groups have been at forefront of Naga insurgency in northeast state of Nagaland. An example of insurgencies in northeast is important from GS paper 3 point of view, as it mentions linkages between development and spread of extremism. Also, insurgency in the northeast region is important from mains point of view as well, which you can see from this previous year question of the year 2017. Hence, in the scope of today's discussion, we will first take a look at reasons which are responsible for northeastern insurgency. Also, we will discuss the impact of these insurgencies in addition to government measures that have been taken in order to reduce the amount of disturbance in northeastern states. Further, we will take a look at major achievements due to government measures, followed by challenges that these measures face. In the end, we will discuss a way forward in order what should be done to reduce insurgency in the northeastern states. Now, insurgency in the northeast can be clubbed into three different categories. First is national conflicts. Now, demands for a separate Naga nation is an example of such conflicts. The second is ethnic conflicts, which we can see in the state of Manipur currently, where two communities, that is Meiteis as well as Kukis, are fighting with each other. Further, there are sub-regional conflicts, such as that of demand of separate Gorkhaland state out of West Bengal in the northeastern region of Siliguri corridor. Now that we have discussed that insurgency is prominent in northeastern states, let us then discuss what are the reasons for such insurgency. There are two reasons. First is of pre-independence era, where setting up of reserve forest by the British has led to loss of tribal control over natural resources, and this forms the heart of insurgency in the current times. Further, there are post-independence factors as well. The first factor is that ethical and cultural concerns were overlooked during the process of delineation of state boundaries in the decade of 1950s, and this has led to increase in tension between different communities. Further, there is a lack of development of social and public infrastructure in these states, and this has resulted into governance deficit, which has led to widespread corruption and lack of accountabilities. Further, policies made by both central and state governments do not reflect the ground realities, and they do not adequately address the local sensitivities, and the implementation of these policies have been unsatisfactory. Also, due to geographical isolation of northeastern states, it has led to lack of integration with the rest of this country. Hence, there has been limited cultural exchanges between the Indian mainland and the northeastern states. Also, there has been constant migration into the northeastern region of people from plains, which has posed economic, cultural, and political threats to the indigenous tribals in these areas. Also, this region is surrounded by a hostile neighborhood, and some neighborhood countries have been extending moral and material support in order to further these insurgencies. In addition, there has been difficult terrain, which has led to weak infrastructure and thereby further facilitating the insurgency in these states. Now, after discussing the reasons, let us take a look how this insurgency has impacted the northeastern part of our country. The insurgency has led to constant turmoil and it has resulted into infighting among different communities in this region. Also, there has been extent of support by Naga insurgency. The Naga insurgency provides logistical and philosophical underpinnings for most of the other groups in the region, and this has led to lack of investment in the region. Thereby, the region has an untapped potential for hydroelectric power. Also, the economy of the region is affected, as the insurgent groups have been extorting money from businesses, thereby, businesses are reluctant to further invest in the region. Also, due to insurgency, the narcotics trade has increased in the region. Due to the demand of funds to keep insurgency alive, hence, these groups have been taking the advantages of free movement regime and the proximity of the Golden Triangle in the region. However, government has taken many measures in order to reduce the impact of insurgencies in these states. What are these measures? Let us take a look in the next slide. Now, the government has followed a mixed strategy, which includes a mix of military power, suspension of operations leading to ceasefire, and dialogue between the warring communities. The first is by passage of Armed Force Special Powers Act. It provides the military the sweeping powers and immunity in disturbed areas. Further, there has been peace processes in the northeastern region, which has led to suspension of operations agreement and establishment of memorandum of settlements between government and these insurgent groups. Also, the government started the scheme for surrender and rehabilitation of militants, which provides the surrendered persons with immediate grants and monthly stipend in addition to vocational training. Also, the Constitution of India provides constitutional protection through 6th schedule, which protected not only the tribal laws and customs and gave them land rights, it also provided them with a sufficient autonomy to the tribes in order to administer themselves with a minimum outsider interference. Further, the government has enacted the Act East policy, which aims to enhance the economic cooperation between Southeast Asian nations. Also, the government has signed peace treaties with ethnic groups such as Mizos and Bodos, respectively. Further, the government has undertaken infrastructure development on a large scale. The Kaladan Multimodal Project, the Trilateral Indo-Myanmar and Thailand Highway, as well as Northeast Road Sector Development Scheme are examples of such infra development initiatives. Also, the government has set up a venture fund as initial capital assistance for startups in the northeastern region. In addition, the government has brought a vision hydrocarbon for the year of 2030, which acts as a leverage for hydrocarbon potential in the northeastern states. Further, the Government of India intends to promote development of horticulture, promotion of organic farming, as well as cultivation of oil seeds in the region, and as a result, Sikkim has proved to be the first organic state of our country. Also, there is an example of Nagaland Health Project, which aims to improve the health services and increases the utilization by communities in targeted locations in the state of Nagaland. Now, what are the major achievements as a result of these government measures? Let us take a look in the next slide. Now, the security situation in the whole of northeastern region has improved substantially over the period of last 6 years. Insurgency incidents have declined by 70% in total, and the casualty of security personnel has declined by 78%. Further, civilian deaths has reduced by 80%, and the year of 2019 recorded the lowest ever casualty and insurgency incidences since the year of 1997. While states of Tripura, Mizoram and Sikkim are completely free from insurgency, there has been substantial improvement in situation in other states. Further, to deal with insurgency, the entire state of Nagaland, Assam and Manipur are under the Armed Force Special Powers Act. However, now Armed Force Special Powers Act have been completely removed from the state of Meghalaya and has been reduced to 4 police station outposts in the districts of Tirap, Changlang and Longding in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. Also, the government has banned several insurgents groups in the northeastern region. As many as 17 insurgent groups operating in northeastern states have been banned and declared as unlawful organizations or terrorist organizations as per the UAPA Act of the year of 1967. Also, the Government of India is a party to a tripartite agreement under Memorandum of Settlement which was signed in the state of Tripura. As per these Memorandum of Settlement, the insurgency group has agreed to abjure the path of violence and join the mainstream and to abide by the Constitution of India. And this has provided for a surrender of armed cadres, thereby assimilating them within the society. Further, the government has signed for agreement for settlement of Bru migrants in the state of Tripura. As much as 34,000 of Bru migrants will be settled in the state of Tripura and they will be provided with financial assistance and aid by Government of India for their resettlement and for all-round development through a package as much as 600 crore rupees. Further, the Government of India has established a sectoral level meeting between India and Myanmar, which is there to discuss the issues related to internal security, management of borders, cooperation, and in prevention of drug trafficking. It has helped in efficiently tackling the insurgency and extremism in the northeastern states. However, such measures has also seen several challenges. What are these challenges? Let us take a look in the next slide. Now, first challenge pertains is related to dual responsibilities of the security forces. As security forces in the region has dual responsibility of guarding the border as well as conduct counter-insurgency operations deep inside the Indian territory. Also, there has been a challenge with regards to guarding the open borders because there has been a free movement regime in the states and it also restricts the counter-insurgency operations. Also, India needs to take care of diplomatic relations with states such as Bhutan and Myanmar, which has extended support to Indian efforts to counter insurgency. Also, insurgency in these states have been fanned by other nation states, and these poses challenge to the Indian security infrastructure in the region. Also, there has been multiple bodies and agencies which has been responsible for development of northeastern states. And this has created a lack of clarity of roles between these agencies. Further, there has been reports of delays in project implementation and shortage of funds that has delayed the efforts of counterinsurgency missions. Now, what is a way forward that should be undertaken in order to improve the situation in the northeastern states? Let us take a look in the next slide. Now, the first way forward suggests that there is a need to meet political aspirations of the groups by giving them sufficient autonomy. Implementing the six schedule provisions in these areas will help these groups preserve their identity and culture, thereby giving them greater autonomy. Further, Northeastern Council or NEC can provide a common forum for discussing securities aspect in a comprehensive manner. Hence, the state and central governments should utilize this avenue as well. Further, there is a need to promote economic development in the region, and for this, tourism can provide a very well established avenue. Also, there is a need to improve governance and delivery mechanisms of the government and administration in the region. Further, there is a need to stress on dialogue as an ongoing process in order to reach concrete solutions by involving all stakeholders in the region and not just conducting discussions with one or multiple groups. Also, there is need to have cooperations among states on intelligence sharing, investigation and operations. Thereby, by increasing the autonomy of these groups as well as utilization of Northeastern Council to promote dialogue, and by economic development of the region, we can help establish the governance in this region, and this will help reduce the insurgency in the northeastern states. And hence, this was all for today's discussion on insurgency in the northeastern states. Now moving on to the last article of the day, which appeared on page 10 of today's Hindu newspaper. On June the 20th, the Election Commission of India released a draft proposal on the delimitation of Assembly and Lok Sabha constituencies in the state of Assam. The number of Assembly and parliamentary seats remain unchanged at 126 and 14 respectively, but many of the constituencies have been proposed to be reshaped and the number of reserved seats has been increased in this proposal. And this has led to a lot of churning among various organizations and political parties, with the fortunes of many MLAs likely to be affected. Now, delimitation is important from UPSC perspective, as in GS paper 2, UPSC mentions parliament and state legislatures and their structures, and delimitation alters the structure of parliament and state legislatures. Hence, in the scope of today's discussion, we will first take an overview of what is a delimitation process, following which we will discuss the proposals that are proposed in this draft, followed by criticisms of various stakeholders. In the end, we will take a way forward so as to how the delimitation process can be made more inclusive and less controversial. Now, let us start with what is a delimitation exercise. Now, delimitation exercise was covered in detail on DNS of 31st of May this year. Hence, you can refer to this DNS also. However, for today's discussion, we will take a brief overview of what is a delimitation exercise. Now, delimitation is a process of redrawing of boundaries of Lok Sabha and State Assembly constituencies. And this redrawing is based on a recent census to ensure that each seat has an almost equal number of voters. The delimitation process is ideally carried out every few years after a census is conducted, and this delimitation exercise is conducted by an independent delimitation commission, which is formed under the provisions of Delimitation Commission Act. Such panels were set up in the year of 1952, 1962, 1972, before this exercise was suspended in 1976 due to family planning program. The last delimitation panel was established in the year of 2002. Before the exercise of next panel could be completed in 2008, the delimitation of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Jammu and Kashmir, Manipur and Nagaland was deferred, which was due to security risks in the region, and it was deferred by a presidential order. In the case of Assam, many entities wanted the delimitation done only after the National Register for Citizens or the NRC was updated in order to weed out the illegal immigrants. The Election Commission notified the initiation of Assam's delimitation on December the 27th of the year of 2002. Now, how the proposal has panned out, let us discuss in the next slide itself. If the draft of recent delimitation is accepted, the 24 assembly seats would be reshaped and renamed. Now, the number of reserved seats for the scheduled tribes would increase from 16 to 19, whereas the number of reserved seats for scheduled caste would increase from 8 to 9 respectively. The reserved seat will also be juggled, as 6 each for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes would become unreserved, while the 9 seats for scheduled tribes and 7 seats for scheduled caste would remain reserved. Also, the number of reserved seats for Lok Sabha, that is 2 for scheduled tribes and 1 for scheduled caste, would also remain the same. But Silchar would become reserved for scheduled caste in place of Karimganj. If the draft is implemented, the 39 MLAs of the state and 5 MPs respectively are supposed to lose their seats. Hence, this amount of change has created some criticism. What are the criticisms of the proposal? Let us take a look in the next slide. Now, there have been protests across Assam since the Election Commission of India announced these draft proposals. Ethnic groups such as Ahoms are disappointed with the number of assembly seats, as the number of assembly seats have been reduced in the eastern Assam and they were increased in the region of western Assam. Also, some has questioned the Election Commission of India for citing Section A of the Representation of People Act of the year of 1950, as it was used to initiate the delimitation exercise. The Section 8A of the Act only allows the reorientation of seats without any change in the total number. There also have been criticisms because of the use of census data of the year of 2001, especially because the Election Commission of India used the census data of the year of 2011 for completing the exercise in Jammu and Kashmir. Hence, people were expecting the same data to be used for delimitation in Assam. Also, there are some reservations because some of the seats will result into reshaping, which will scatter the representation of some communities in the state, and it will reduce the representation in the state assembly and parliament. Also, other parties have said that the delimitation exercise should have been waited because the update of NRC has not been completed. However, some sections of the society are also happy with the proposal. For example, the Bodoland territorial region in Assam will see an increase of number of assembly seats from 16 currently to 19 after the proposals are enacted. Now, after these reactions, the Election Commission of India has sought suggestions and omissions by July before visiting the state again. Further, there is a need to safeguard the rights of indigenous people of Assam in view of demographic changes. Hence, in order to make the process of delimitation fair and more inclusive, there are need for several suggestions, which we'll be discussing in the next slide itself. There are several suggestions. The first is that the delimitation provisions under the Article 82 and 327 of the Constitutions are not specific. Therefore, the principles that govern the procedure for periodic delimitation needs to be enriched. Further, there is a need for appointing experts in the Delimitation Commission, such as political scientists, social workers, and NGOs as co-opted members so as to increase the representation of civil society in the Delimitation Commission. Also, there is a need for strict procedures and guidelines in order to ensure that the administrative process of delimitation is not liable for political interference. Further, there should be a process of judicial review, as the provision for judicial review where erroneous process is found in delimitation will cool down the apprehensions of different communities. Hence, by making the principles and procedures enriched and appointing the experts, further, there is a need for strict procedures and guidelines to remove political interference, as well as there is a need for judicial review of the delimitation process in order to make the process of delimitation more inclusive and fair. Hence, this was all for today's discussion on Assam's delimitation exercise.